Okay, let's speak to Massimo Faggioli, who's a professor of theology at Villanova University. Massimo, thanks so much for joining us on the programme. This isn't a scourge confined to France, though, is it? I mean, this has been happening in the Catholic Church all over the world, in Australia, the US and Ireland.
Yes, so this is just the latest of these nationwide reports we have seen in these last few years. The most important ones from Australia, from Germany, from Chile. And so this that started in 2018, especially, it's a new phase in the history of the Catholic Church dealing with this. And now wherever there are nationwide investigations, we have this kind of figures, of stats with a percentage of 3, 4, 5% of abusive priests, and the same kind of patterns with some cultural differences, of course.
How damaging do you think these revelations have been?
They are very damaging because we are no longer in the age where the Catholic Church was enjoying a certain climate of deference and of the reluctance of the justice system, of the police system, and most of all, of the mass media to investigate. So there has been a wave in these last 4 or 5 years, but that started really in 2010 under Pope Benedict. The Catholic Church has taken steps in these last few years, but there's a doubt about the efficacy of these steps that Pope Francis has taken that are mostly in terms of cultural change and not really at the level of structural change.
Right. So, I mean, do you think that what he is doing will be able to restore confidence in the Catholic Church, or do you think too much damage has been done?
Well, much damage has been done, and Pope Francis has done a lot to restore some confidence. The major problem for the Catholic Church and for the Vatican is that all these investigations, at the end of the reports, they have recommendations. And they all ask the Vatican to take some steps on the celibacy of the priests, on the monarchical power structure, on the seal of confession. And so far, there has been an opposition, a refusal to accept that these are possible steps to be taken to address this tragedy.
Right. And as well as that, some victims groups are calling for financial reparations. Do you think the Church will be forced to pay financial compensation on a mass scale to victims?
Well, that has happened already. If one looks at the United States, the reports are very courageous in saying that the reparations shouldn't be just a symbolic sum or a lump sum, but they should be evaluated carefully, case by case. And so we are past that time when the compensation was in terms of not allowing survivors to speak up. So that is really a new era.
Right, and I mean, do you think that some of the criticism that was levelled against the Church was that it showed, the reports suggested, complete indifference to victims? Do you think that has now changed?
That has changed also because that indifference was not just of the Catholic Church. If one looks at the story of the Second Peace Crisis in the Catholic Church in the United States, those cases had been uncovered already in the 1980s. And the New York Times, the Washington Post, all networks refused to air those stories. So there has been a wide culture of denial that was typical of the Catholic Church, but all of the mass media, of the justice system, of the police system. That age is really over.
I mean, I think what a lot of people will take away from this report is just, one, the sheer scale of it, but also just how this abuse was allowed and enabled to go on for so long within the Church. How do you think that the billions of Catholics worldwide will respond to this?
This is a very good question. We know that Catholics worldwide respond in very different ways to this news. There is outrage and scandal and shock in the Western world. It is different in other areas of the world where churches have different issues, different challenges. They are persecuted churches sometimes. And so the whole narrative of the sex abuse is received differently. So it's a global problem, but the narrative and the responses of Catholics tend to be quite different in different areas of the world.
Okay, Massimo Faggioli, so good of you to take the time to speak to us this evening, Professor of Theology there at Villanova University.